Portugal's 2026 World Cup journey, the final chapter of a golden generation. The 2026 FIFA World Cup, a tournament unlike any before it. 48 nations, 3 host countries, 16 cities. For years, Ronaldo had carried the dreams of an entire nation. He had won the European Championship. He had broken countless scoring records. He had become one of the greatest footballers the world had ever seen. This was not simply another tournament. For Ronaldo and an entire generation of Portuguese supporters, this felt like one last chance. One last opportunity to chase the biggest prize in international football. And Portugal arrived with a talented squad around their legendary captain. Young stars. Experienced leaders. But the road to glory would be anything but easy. The group stage. Portugal entered Group K alongside the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Uzbekistan, and Colombia. On paper, Portugal had the quality to advance. But the World Cup has never been decided on paper. Every match brings pressure. Every mistake can change everything. And Portugal's journey began with a difficult opening match against DR Congo. The Portuguese side started with confidence, looking to control possession and create opportunities. But DR Congo refused to make life easy. Portugal were forced to work for every opening, every attack, every chance. When the final whistle arrived, the match ended 1-1. Could the experienced stars and younger players come together at exactly the right moment? The answer would have to come quickly, because the next match was against Uzbekistan. And this time, Portugal delivered. 5 goals. A dominant performance. 5 different moments of celebration. Portugal looked faster, sharper, more confident. The midfield controlled the tempo. The attack found space. Portugal were still alive, and they were dangerous. But one final group match remained. Colombia. A team capable of creating problems for any opponent. Portugal knew that qualification was within reach. But the match became a battle of patience. Colombia defended strongly. Portugal searched for the breakthrough. The chances came. The pressure increased. But neither team could find the winning goal. The final score? 0-0. Portugal finished second in Group K. And suddenly, the knockout stage was here. The margins were gone. There would be no second chances. One bad performance could end everything. Portugal's next opponent? Croatia. And waiting on the other side was a familiar face. One legend against another. 2 icons of the modern game. 2 players who had shared some of the greatest moments in football history. Now, they stood on opposite sides. And the World Cup had brought them together for another unforgettable chapter. Portugal versus Croatia, a battle of legends. Toronto. The round of 32. Portugal versus Croatia. The atmosphere was electric. Portugal knew exactly what was at stake. Win, and they continued their World Cup dream. Lose, and the journey was over. From the opening minutes, the intensity was obvious. Portugal tried to control possession. Croatia looked dangerous whenever they moved forward. The midfield battle was fierce. Every tackle mattered. Every mistake could be punished. And as the match developed, Croatia found the breakthrough. Ivan Perisic. A moment of quality. A moment that put Portugal under enormous pressure. Portugal were behind. And now they needed a response. This was the moment when experience mattered. The moment when leaders had to stand up. And Cristiano Ronaldo did exactly that. Portugal won a penalty. The pressure was enormous. The entire stadium waited. Ronaldo stepped forward. The legendary number 7. The captain. The player who had lived through countless moments like this. He took his position. Focused. Calm. And then, goal. Cristiano Ronaldo had equalized. Portugal were back in the game. The comeback had begun. The Portuguese supporters exploded with emotion. But there was still time remaining. Croatia refused to surrender. Portugal continued pushing forward. The match became more intense with every passing minute. And then came the dramatic final moments. Portugal attacked again. The ball moved forward. The Croatian defense struggled to clear. And suddenly, Gonçalo Ramos found the opportunity. A substitute making the difference. A youngster stepping into the spotlight. Ramos struck. Goal. Portugal had turned the match around. from 0 to 1 down, to 2 to 1 ahead. In the most dramatic fashion, the Portuguese players celebrated together. Ronaldo, Ramos, the entire team. The comeback was complete. Portugal had survived. Portugal had advanced. And the dream was still alive. The final whistle confirmed it. Constant pressure. Portugal defended with determination. They knew they could not afford to make mistakes. Every time Spain entered the final third, Portugal had to remain organized. Every attack felt dangerous. Portugal tried to respond. Ronaldo looked for opportunities. The Portuguese midfield battled for control. The defense worked desperately to keep Spain away from goal. But Spain kept pushing. And eventually, the breakthrough came. One goal. One moment. One strike that changed everything. Spain took the lead. Portugal were behind. And now the clock was against them. The Portuguese players knew what they had to do. Attack. Take risks. Fight until the very last second. Crosses entered the box. Shots were attempted. The pressure grew. But Spain stood firm. Portugal, his teammates continued running. The Portuguese supporters continued singing. But the equalizer never came. The final moments. There was silence. Portuguese players, some looked toward the ground. Others looked toward the supporters. The disappointment was impossible to hide. They had survived Croatia. They had reached the round of 16. But against Spain, the smallest of margins decided everything. One defeat. For Cristiano Ronaldo, the moment carried a different weight. At 41 years old, the legendary forward had once again represented his country on football's biggest stage. He had scored in the dramatic comeback against Croatia. He had helped Portugal survive another knockout battle. But the ultimate dream remained out of reach. The World Cup trophy would not be going to Portugal. Not this time. The Portuguese players walked around the pitch. They applauded the fans. The fans applauded them back. Because football is not only about trophies. It is about memories. It is about the moments that remain forever. And Portugal had created plenty of those moments. The comeback against Croatia. Gonçalo Ramos late winner. The emotional celebrations. The end of an era? And then came the question that everyone was thinking. Was this the end? But the image of Ronaldo walking away from the pitch carried enormous emotion. For more than 2 decades, he had been one of the defining figures of world football. He had represented Portugal at tournament after tournament. He had lifted trophies. He had broken records. And he had inspired millions. In 2026, Portugal came close to another deep run. But the path ended against Spain. And perhaps the most emotional part of the story was not the defeat itself. Players like Gonçalo Ramos, João Neves, Vitinha, Nuno Mendes, and the many young talents waiting to write their own chapters. Portugal's future is still bright. The talent is there. The ambition is there. But the 2026 World Cup will always be remembered as a special tournament. Because it was the tournament where Portugal fought. They drew against DR Congo. They dominated Uzbekistan. They battled Colombia. They came from behind against Croatia. And they fought Spain until the final whistle. They didn't win the trophy. But they left their mark. The comeback against Croatia. The battle against Spain. And one legendary number 7, Cristiano Ronaldo. This may have been the end of a World Cup journey. But it will never be the end of the legacy. Portugal's story continues. The future is waiting. And the world will be watching. This is football. This is Portugal. And this was their 2026 FIFA World Cup journey.